Hey, Plain Talk listeners, do you have a question, comment, or something you want us to discuss on the show?
We want to hear from you.
Leave a voicemail or send a text to 701-587-3141. That's 701-587-3141, and we might feature it on an upcoming episode.
Thanks for listening to Plain Talk. Now let's get back to today's episode.
Love staying informed? Subscribe now and get unlimited access to local news, weather, and sports for just 99 cents a month for your first 3 months at inform.news/join. Read every story, listen to every podcast, and download the apps that keep you informed and on the go 24 hours a day. So head to inform.news/join right now to subscribe. What are you waiting for? Get 3 months of local news for just 99 cents a month at inform.news/join.
You're listening to Plain Talk, the voice of North Dakota politics. I'm your host, Rob Port. If I sound distracted, it's because I've been busy covering this story all morning. I'm joined by my co-host, Chad Oban.
He's right of center, I'm left of center, both sides of the political spectrum.
I think it's cathartic. I think it's a necessary and proper debate. I'm glad we're having it.
And honestly, we have to do better.
Okay, I don't know why I'm getting blamed for this, right? Welcome to Plain Talk, and what you're actually about to listen to, we haven't done it on the podcast before. We're going to be playing a rerun. It's the holiday. Neither Chad and I wanted to work right after Thanksgiving because let's be honest. If America was ever going to be attacked, the Friday after Thanksgiving is probably the day to do it because honestly, everybody's checked out. You know, people are shopping, people are spending time with family, people are still in food comas. That's the time to do it. Chad and I are no different. As you're listening to this.
Let's be clear, Rob. I actually wanted to do the show, but you said you're planning on Black Friday shopping for 12 straight hours at the mall up there in Minot, so you couldn't do it.
I am not. I do not. I don't. I have a whole thing about. I watch the people like fighting each other over Black Friday, and I am a capitalist, and that makes me want to go read a Noam Chomsky book a little bit. I don't.
9:45 a.m. on the day before Thanksgiving, and Rob is leaving this interview to go and get in line at Walmart to make sure he gets all the deals on Black Friday.
No, that is not what's happening. But we do hope that everyone listening to this has a wonderful holiday. What you're about to listen to, by the way, is an interview with Tony Bender, who of course passed away recently. Tony was a heck of a character. I would encourage you to go look up some of his old columns. Go look up some. By the way, Tony was a newspaper publisher as well. I was seeing some emails from the North Dakota Newspaper Association is working on helping to make sure his paper still gets published in the interim. He had some great books, by the way. He had a collection of essays called, I think it was called If Every Month Was June. And then the book that I really liked of his was The Last Ghost Dancer, which was it's a novel. And it's worth your time. So if you're looking for something fun to read over the holiday, that would be something to read. But other than there, I don't know. What are we most thankful for, Chad?
Well, I'm thankful for the Plain Talk podcast. I think this gives us a great opportunity to talk about important things. You know, in all seriousness, though, I mean, I think in this day and age, us being able to model how to have conversations on things we agree with, on things we don't agree on, bringing on guests that maybe one of us agrees with, or both of us agree with, or neither of us agree with, and being able to have a civil conversation with very, very little shouting, I think is something I'm thankful for, and we need more of.
And what shouting there is not so much anger, but passion, I would say. Because again, I don't think that's something that we can ignore about politics, is that we get passionate about it sometimes, and that's okay. You're allowed to feel passionate.
Right on.
But we have to treat each other. We have to remember that the people you disagree with don't disappear after an election. And it's, in fact, given the cyclical nature of our politics, it's very likely that their side may win the next election. And we've got to start conducting ourselves, in a way that recognizes that truth, because that truth is not going away. Anyway, again, hope you all had a wonderful holiday. Please enjoy this rerun. We'll be back at it again on Wednesday. Thanks for listening.
The cold cases you see at the Vault have captivated readers across our region for years. At the Vault podcast, our team of professional reporters takes you further into those stories with new interviews from family members, investigators, and experts. Check out The Vault at inforum.com/The Vault and subscribe to The Vault wherever you find your podcasts.
My guest today is Tony Bender, who you'll probably recognize. He, like myself, is a columnist, writes for the Forum News Service, as I do, published in newspapers across the state. Tony is also an author. He's a longtime newspaper publisher himself, and someone I like to think of as a good friend, which might surprise people because I am very conservative and Tony is very not conservative, and yet somehow we get along pretty well. Tony, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing good, but I'm trying to decide, am I supposed to be nervous or not?
Well, I don't know. You can feel however you want to feel.
All right.
Nothing to be nervous with me. So what I wanted to talk about today, Tony, is that we have a special session of the legislature going on in Bismarck. And there's some pretty consequential things to be decided. There's about $1 billion plus in federal dollars. I think Biden bucks is kind of what the lawmakers are jokingly calling it. Redistricting is obviously the impetus for the session to begin with. We have to redraw the district lines, and anytime you're doing that, there could be a little controversy or a little bit of whatever around it. But that's what we're doing. So the first day of the special session, though, featured a rally. They called it the We the People rally. It was organized, frankly, out of where I live, Minot. It was a group of Republican district chairs. For some reason, some guy from Ohio who's been subpoenaed in the January 6th investigation was the guy who pulled the permit for the rally in Bismarck. But this rally happened, and to me, it's a manifestation of something that I've been talking about for more than a year now, which is a pronounced divide, not just in the conservative movement and the Republican Party nationally, but locally. I think North Dakota is very much a place where, that divide is happening. And so I watched that rally, and even after the fact, I mean, the rally was very much, the organizers were upset with me. Jay Lundeen, he's a District 40 North Dakota Republican Party chairman from up here in Minot. He was one of the organizers of the rally. He at a reception after the rally, he kind of went on a rant about me. By the way, if you want to see the video where he gets right up in I have a column going up about it today, called "On the We the People Rally." So if you want to watch the video, you can find it there. I have it embedded. But I mean, somebody watched that and then came to me and was accusing me, like, "Rob Port, you stand for tyranny." And so I asked the question, like what specific position have I taken that in your mind equates to tyranny? And she told me, well, you support masks and you support vaccine mandates. And I said, well, I do support masks, but I don't support vaccine mandates. This person didn't even know, right? They just imagined. And this is somebody I know who follows me on social media, although she brags all the time about how she doesn't subscribe to the forum. So it's kind of funny, those people who they're literally saying they can't read my column, but boy, they sure have a lot to say about it. And this person doesn't even really know what my positions are. And to me, that's even more troubling. Is it's already hard to have debates about things like vaccine mandates and everything else, social issues, abortion, all of these things that we spend all of this time to, that's really hard. Democracy is really, really friggin' hard. And the problem is on top of that, we have this extra layer, which is people just sort of living in their own version of reality. So we're having these debates, but we're not even talking the same language because it's almost like we're not even living in the same world anymore.
No, we get assigned positions by other people that we may not have. I mean, are you tyrannical? Well, you're here for the Yankees. Okay?
Yeah, because they win relentlessly, Tony. All right? Everybody loves a winner.
See, so there's truth to that argument. But yeah, I fight that sometimes where I get assigned a certain position. I am a social liberal, but I consider myself a fiscal conservative, not insane, in that I don't see it as always just an expenditure, sometimes an investment. And that's a key word. But, you know, to get through a debate and have to discount positions that you don't even hold, is exhausting.
Well, it is. But I think that's the problem is it becomes, because you're identified, you're a liberal columnist, which generally is true. I don't think that's an unfair characterization, but it's almost like when you're trying to like label music, right? Back in the days when we used to have music stores, remember that? You'd go in and there'd be all these like very weird categories, right? For me it was CDs. That was in my heyday. It was you would go in and you'd see all the CDs lined up. And I guess we still have music stores, right? Vinyl's a big thing now. But anyway, but you go in and they try to like categorize the music, right? And I understand, like they want to help you find the music you're looking for, but like how do you categorize? Is this a blues musician or like is this what type of heavy metal music is this? Like it's really hard. The world is a complicated place, and it's we're spending a lot of time being obsessed with simplistic explanations for complicated things. I'm sorry, go ahead.
We belong to parties and clubs and whatever, but we're all individuals. No two people completely think alike. I mean, anyone who's been married knows that. Look, we're individual, and we lose sight of that. Forget, tribal, and within the tribe, then, where the emotions run hot, people are afraid to get into nuance or say, yeah, but I agree with this, but not that. We lose the nuance.
Yeah, I think you're right. So let's switch gears. We've kind of talked about this rally and everything that's going on there. What are you seeing in the special session? Are you tracking anything? Are you keeping an eye on anything in particular?
Very loosely. I have not read any bill. The critical race theory bill, I was somewhat surprised to see Wardner jumping on board with that. Because he strikes me as somebody more pragmatic and somebody who understands the reality that isn't even really a thing in North Dakota. What it is a political issue designed to get you votes in the next election. I mean, that's really what it is. It's positive.
Yeah. Although I would argue that an issue can be both. I think it's possible to have genuine concerns about when I look at something like the 1619 project. I think that was a deeply unfortunate. It was treated like an act of journalism. I don't think it was. I think it was an act of politics, an attempt to reshape something. And recognizing fully that our historians have long had a debate about topics like race and slavery and how important these different things are and to our history and our society and all these things. Even understanding that, I thought that was unfortunate, and so I don't know. I mean, when I look at academia, I don't think it's unfair to say that this is a place that's dominated by one particular cultural or political point of view, and when that begins to permeate our schools, I don't think it's wrong to be concerned about that. Now, what I worry though is that we're going to try to correct a doctrinaire attempt to influence the way we teach history with another doctrinaire attempt to lock in the way we've always taught history. I think these are very evolving things. And really what I'm looking for is honesty. And I think we're best going to get that in the aggregate from local control over schools and not politicians passing bills, whether they're for or against quote unquote critical race theory. I really don't want the politicians to get involved. I kind of want school boards and parent teacher associations and everything else, as hard as that is sometimes, as we've seen from some of these recent school board meetings. I'd rather the issue be settled there than to have grandstanding politicians glomming onto it. I don't think that helps.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. I was at a school board meeting last night. I'll be at another one tomorrow night. My kid, I'm familiar with what's being taught. My brother is a teacher, a social studies teacher, and it just gets down to teaching the facts. And now, if you're taught the facts and you go out into the world and you extrapolate from that, gee whiz, when a race has been put so far behind, from the starting position that they haven't caught up yet, well, that's a legitimate argument. And again, it's a generalization. Does it apply to everyone? No. Are all Caucasians doing great? No. I mean, it's so nuanced. But you just have to look at the history and be honest about it.
Sure.
And then look at society and be honest about it.
Yeah. And it's hard. Like when we have policy debates, I like to think of it when we're making policy, we're making it for the aggregate, right? We're making it for in a very general way, right? When you make a law, like the law just has to apply all the time. Like it's very hard. You could carve out exemptions and nuances or whatever, but it's hard. We make policy in the aggregate, but we experience it as individuals. And I think that's what happens with something like critical race theory, where you go and you could talk about, how white men have been at the top of the heap for most of history, particularly in European and North American culture. And that's a true thing. That's absolutely true. And you could talk about how people of color, Black people and Hispanic people, everything else, have been mistreated. Native Americans have been mistreated, and victimized, brutalized in so many ways. And that's also true. But then you can talk to one specific white person and tell them that they have white privilege and maybe their parents were meth addicts. Maybe they had to get up and dress in dirty clothes to go to school every day. If you're telling that individual that they have privilege, that's as wrong as looking at a Black person and assuming that they grew up in a ghetto with a single mom. That's not fair. And so that's what I really look for. I want to treat people as individuals. We do too much lumping people into groups. And I realize that's hard because that's kind of how we have to make policy. But I feel like we would all do better if we treated people as individuals more.
Well, at the bottom of this, Rob, they're fighting a battle against no one. No one is teaching critical race theory. It's not a thing in North Dakota. It's political grandstanding. Because, it's just not an...
Yeah. It's not an issue in the legislature. I agree with you. It's grandstanding. If you're concerned about what your local schools are teaching, go to the school board. Call up your local superintendent, get some information. A lot of this stuff is available if you look for it, and you can find out what they're teaching. And if you object to something, show up at the school board meeting and respectfully, engage in the process that way, understanding that there may be a lot of people out there who feel differently from you, but we can solve this problem. And you're right. I don't think we need grandstanding politicians coming in and attaching buzzwords, because it doesn't even have to be critical race theory to be problematic.
Be consistent. Don't sit there and say local control, local control, local control. And then when it's convenient, we're going to tell you what to do. Be consistent. Pick one side or another.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it is funny. I on the other hand, wouldn't like when we talk about property taxes. I love how local officials love to talk about local control until it comes time for somebody to be responsible for the property tax bills, at which point it's all the legislature's fault. which never fails to amuse me. Local control, but statewide responsibility. What was that thing during the too big to fail era where it was privatized profit but socialized debt or something like that?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
like
yeah.
General Motors should get, they're a private company, they should get to keep their profits, but if they fail, then that's society's problem, right?
Oh, that's been a policy in America for a long time. Recognize it, we don't admit it, but oh yeah, oh yeah.
So let's talk about
We bail people out all the time.
let's talk about redistricting, which is the primary reason why the legislature is meeting. It seems like the big issue is the subdividing legislative districts. How do you feel about that?
I'm just gonna confess to you, Rob, that has not been on my radar screen. So I don't know that I can speak knowledgeably about it, but I'd be interested to hear, a breakdown of it. So I'm on the periphery, I'm following it, but I haven't gotten into the new fact.
So the idea is what the plan before the legislature now that they're working on, the one that was approved by the interim committee that was tackling redistricting, and now the full legislature has to approve it. What they approved is they subdivided 2 legislative districts. Now, if you're not up on your North Dakota civics, the way things work now is we have legislative districts, and each legislative district encompasses a geographical area, and the lines are drawn so that each geographical area has roughly the same population. And so actually what they're doing now is we just got a new census, they're redrawing the lines so that the apportionment remains relatively equal across the state geographically. But what they've done is each legislative district has a senator and 2 representatives. They're all elected to the same 4-year terms on the same ballot. Typically, the Republican candidates and the Democratic candidates all run together on a ticket. That's why in campaign season, you'll see all those yard signs with like 3 people's names on them. That's a slate of candidates that's running for those legislative seats, a senator and 2 representatives. What they've done is in 2 districts, District 4 and District 9, they have subdivided the House districts. So those districts would still elect 1 senator, but they would elect, there would be a divide. The legislature would be geographically divided, and then one half would elect 1 representative, and the other half would elect the other representative. Now, the reason for District 4 and District 9 is these are 2 reservations that are near Native American communities. District 4 encompasses the Fort Berthold, the 3 affiliated tribes, and District 9 encompasses Turtle Mountain. And so, the idea is by doing this, we're going to make it easier for Native Americans to elect one of their own. But Tony, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, if we're just subdividing those 2 districts, that means the people in those districts only get to vote for 2 lawmakers, whereas everybody else gets to vote for 3. I think whatever the intent, that seems like a very stupid idea. And I don't even know how it made it this far, frankly.
Well, I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and I'm thinking about it. I would be cautious about doing that. I understand what's going on there. I'd have to really look at this and think about this quite a bit.
Yeah.
The pros and cons of it. I understand the pros, to the potential pros. And when you look at it, districting throughout this country is engineering in a lot of ways. I mean, when you see the map of districts, they've been engineered to either give one party, an advantage or another party a disadvantage, or to maximize your wins, minimize your losses. So this is certainly in keeping with that strategy, but should we be continuing with that strategy?
Yeah.
Um,
And let's and to be honest, like this is, in terms of partisan outcomes, the redistricting plan I just described, I think would be a wash. If you District 4 is currently all Republicans. If you subdivide it and give a portion of it to the tribal communities, okay, maybe they're going to elect a Democrat to the House. But District 9 is all Democrats. And if you subdivide that, you're probably going to elect a Republican there where one wasn't elected before. So in terms of partisanship, it's a wash. I don't think North Dakota, if you look at the map, there's really not a lot of districts that are drawn all that. The weirdness on our map is that some of our rural districts are gigantic. Some are like the size of Connecticut. And it's, I mean, that's a problem with our rural. I mean, that's just where people in North Dakota are choosing to live. I don't know how we get around that. Like, we have to apportion these districts equally. About the only thing I think was we could add more legislative seats, which I wouldn't be against, but that's not on the table. But the larger issue is for instance, the tribes came in yesterday into the delayed bills committee, and they had their own map where the Turtle Mountain tribe wants a legislative district that encompasses their land and also the Spirit Lake Sioux land. And the way they have it is this district that they've drawn has, Turtle Mountain, which is up along the Canadian border. And then it has like a little like piece of the district goes down to Spirit Lake, which is right by Devil's Lake. And Tony, if that's not gerrymandering, I don't know what is, right? I mean, isn't that what gerrymandering is where we're drawing the map to try to get a particular political outcome, and we draw it in like all these weird jigsaw shapes to make that work? I mean, to me, that's exactly whatever the intent, to me, that's exactly what we're supposed to be avoiding.
Well, I certainly understand it. I mean, both parties do it. Republicans have been much better at doing it. I mean,
Republicans have been much better at winning state legislative seats for a long time, and in turn controlling the redistricting process, I think, is probably where that came from.
Well, I mean, we've pronounced the Republican Party dead several times in my lifetime. And as a party, they have been more organized, more grassroots, and have built from the bottom up a stronger structure, and have been successful for that reason. Strategically, they've been more successful.
I think that's true. Although, I mean, the obviously, and when you're talking about urban areas, I mean, Democrats dominate those places. So I mean, the same could be true. It's the rural urban divide, and that's a whole other topic we could get into. But I mean, generally, I just want the lines drawn fairly. I feel like what I don't understand about this map is how we get around the proposal that's on the table, how we get around the idea that if you live in District 4, you get one less representative than if you live in District 5, which is where I live in Minot. I live in District 5. I'm going to be able to vote in the next election where they're on the ballot. I'm going to be able to vote for a senator and 2 representatives. But if this map goes through and you live in District 4, you're going to be able to vote for 2. How's that equal representation? That doesn't make a lick of sense to me.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see it play out. I will. I promise you, I will dig in deeper. I wasn't following that particular aspect of redistricting.
Well, I've written about it, Tony. You're telling me you don't read every single one of my columns?
I don't read conservative stuff.
Oh man, I read your columns.
I will tell you, I do. Yeah, most of the time I do. I can't believe I missed it.
Yeah,
I apologize.
No, that's all right. And it was over the summer, and everybody was tuned out from politics over the summer, except for me, because I'm a giant dork. So what's on your mind? I mean, you write every week. I know you and I both have the same job, writing these columns every week. I think people maybe don't. If you and I might be excused to dwell a little bit on our own challenges. It's hard coming up with stuff every week. Can you talk a little bit about how you find the things you want to write about?
Well, actually, North Dakota is so pugnacious lately that, that's pretty good ground. But, you write more than I do. So I write 2 columns a week. And one of them is, kind of a human interest one. But, well, there's so much hypocrisy, which I think is a big target for me. And, the lack of political honesty and logic is, a frequent topic. But, well, one thing I've been thinking about is this in South Dakota. Just when they're starting to dig into this Ravensbourne, the attorney general who mowed down a pedestrian about a year and a quarter ago.
Yeah.
The sheriff who investigated dies. Now, seriously, that's where the conspiracy theorists ought to be jumping up and down. I mean, that seems convenient to me. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm just like, you're just like,
Yeah, coincidences don't happen. The other thing that's kind of interested me out of South Dakota too is the Kristi Noem's daughter and the appraiser permit, right? Who on earth thought that would turn into a hot thing, like appraiser licensing would turn into this hot button issue? But I'm sorry, like that just doesn't happen, right? Like you don't call in the department head after your daughter was denied an appraiser permit into some meeting that your daughter who was denied the permit also attend. Like that doesn't just happen. Right? Like I'm not, in the absence of some other explanation that the daughter had a reason for being there, that doesn't just happen, Tony. That's not just a coincidence. But getting back to this this partisan environment we live in, people don't care. I write about that, and to me, I think as an American, like that's an un-American thing, right? Like no, I'm sorry, you don't abuse. And I like to think it's a conservative thing. I'm sure you like to think of it as a liberal. You don't abuse the powers of your office that way. And if you do it, you don't deserve to hold that office. So I wrote pretty strongly about Kristi Noem and the blowback I got from people that were just, oh, you're just threatened by a strong Republican woman and everything else. I don't know. She's a politician. And she did this. Like these facts are not in dispute. She owes us a thorough explanation at the very least of what the hell happened. And I'm sorry, if she had the same commitment to ethics and ethics in government that she wants Democrats up to and including President Joe Biden to have, she would resign. To me, I don't understand that. Like, where did we get to a point where we were just willing to accept sleazy politicians as long as they were on quote unquote our team? And maybe that's me. To me, that was always just obvious. Like I don't care if you're a Republican. If you're doing this is wrong. Get out of here.
Yeah, I think there are more people who are willing to say, yeah, I'll go for a Republican dictator right now. Mainly. I mean, people are actually emboldened enough to say that. But getting back to Noem, but the outside looking in,
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I believe she's positioning herself to be a vice presidential candidate for Trump.
Oh yeah.
And on the other side, there are people looking to take her down. And I mean, does that extend beyond, South Dakota? But, this particular, issue, she's vulnerable on. And somebody's going after.
Right. Well, yeah, always. I mean, you have a governor with national aspirations, and that's going to draw the hatchet men, right? Like they're going to come and they're going to try to dig up dirt and find ways to take her out before she becomes a problem, right? Like I get that. And I know you're not making this argument, but for some people, like that reality, which is true, trumps what she actually did. Like that can all be true. There can really be people out there who are trying to take down Kristi Noem. I don't doubt it for a minute. Doesn't change the fact of what she did. Right? Like none of that is, it's all irrelevant to the thing that she actually did, which matters. We're so caught up in questioning everybody's motives that we're not focusing on just empirically observing the world as it is.
Exactly. No, I agree with you. I'm just, as you understand, observing from the outside, looking in and going, okay, here's what's going on. Yeah, she, clearly she abused her power for her family. And I don't think it's first time.
No, I think you're absolutely right. So it gets back to me. It was when Donald Trump sort of infamously said that he could, like, I'm forgetting what he exactly said, but it was like he could shoot somebody down on Fifth Avenue and his audience would still love him. And, I mean, that's the era we're living in right now, when people just cling. I mean, Anthony Weiner, the disgraced Congress, who had about as disgusting, I mean, he was sexting with an underage kid. I mean, there were still, obviously that was a scandal that finally ended his political career. But up until then, I mean, he was running for mayor of New York and had it was very possible he could have been elected. People just are willing. We're so caught up in all of this that they're just willing to stick to these and I don't get it. I get so much crap, Tony, for, people say I'm not conservative anymore because I don't buy into the Trump stuff. I don't like it. I don't like what Trumpism is doing to the conservative movement, which is a movement I care very deeply for. I don't like it. And so people, accuse me because I don't like Trump. I'm not a conservative thing anymore. And I tell them, I don't want to belong to a political movement that's about a person or even about a group of people. I belong to a political movement that's about ideas. That's what I want to belong to. And if it's going to be about a person, then count me out. I don't want any part of that. That's a cult. That's not a political movement. That's a cult. I don't want any part of it.
Well, there's not a lot of critical thinking going on in a lot of this. They're looking for cheerleaders, unquestioning cheerleaders, and the very best conservatives, the most interesting, the most thoughtful, have never been cheerleaders. You may not have always agreed with them. George Will. Who am I?
Hammer, I think, is another good example, probably.
And I'm missing a couple. My brain isn't working this morning, but anyway, we've lost that. We've lost that critical thinking. We can't just be all or nothing cheerleaders for any one thing. We used the word compromise earlier. It's always got to be about compromise. Nobody expects or should get a full loaf. We slice it. Half a loaf is fine sometimes. It's, and that, people are impatient, but democracy does not move quickly. And in general, that's probably pretty good. Now, there's some disadvantages to reacting to a crisis, as we're seeing now. We're kind of muddling through some things.
Right. Well, when you're reacting, policy becomes reactionary, right? Which is not a good thing.
But I'm not willing to trade in my democracy. And I'm willing to take half a loaf. I'm fine with moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats.
I am too. One thing that I learned, because I am the blog that I started is now 18 years old. Is now old enough to vote. Which still, it makes me feel so old. But when I started it, I was 23 years old and full of piss and vinegar and hot-blooded, and was setting out to win these political debates. And what I've learned over the years is that you don't ever really win, right? The other side doesn't go away, right? They don't fold up their banners and just go home. You have an election, maybe your issue or your candidates win, and then, they get to govern for a while before we do it all over again. Like, there's no winning. I remember when Barack Obama won in 2008 and he took office, I think it was like 2009, James Carville wrote a book, and it was something like the 100-year Democratic majority. And it was all centered around this idea that Democrats were going to be in office for generations. So the Republican, just what you were talking about, the Republican Party was gone. And by 2010, the Republicans had control of the House again, right? The Democratic supermajority lasted exactly 1-2 year political cycle. But that's the attitude, is everybody thinks that if we fight hard enough, we'll win, and then the debate will be over, and this will just be how it is. And if you look in history, we're having the same debates over and over again. Nothing really changes. But Tony, that we're coming up on an hour. I really appreciate you doing this. I always enjoy your columns, even when they piss me off. And I really like it when you take jabs at me for using big words, which irritates more people than I ever thought would. But I'm sorry. I'm not apologizing for my thesaurus.
Well, I would like to apologize for my dog, who managed to stay quiet through this whole thing until the very end. And also, if anybody's wondering about my voice, which is scratchy, I'm doing great.
Yeah.
I'm very healthy. Had a cancer operation. I'm clean. Everything's great. My voice is recovering from a stretched year. So I sound sick. I feel great.
Yeah.
So I just want everyone to know that.
Yeah, that's I should have probably made that clear at the beginning, but I don't know. I think you're sounding pretty good, Tony. You're sounding strong to me, and that's good news. Thank you so much.
It comes and goes.
Yeah.
It comes and goes. Hey, thanks, Rob.
Thanks,
I
Tony.
appreciate it.